Hosted by you/Laliluhu. My fiancé and I are getting married this fall, and the cake has been a huge point of contention with my mom. Long story short, we wanted a dessert bar or cheesecake instead of a traditional cake. My mom initially insisted on having at least a small cake for just us to cut. We compromised and got quotes. Right before we put down a deposit, she decided that having just a cake for us and not for guests would be tacky, so she said we needed to get a sheet cake to serve as well. We were annoyed because she was the one who suggested it, so we cut our losses and opted for tiered cheesecake and mini cheesecakes, as we originally wanted. My mom has not let this go for the past 6 months. She then shifted her focus to pushing for a groom's cake. My fiancé did not want one. When I told her this, she said it's really only a groom's cake in name and not about what he wants. I firmly told her no, multiple times, because she wouldn't give up. That brings us to this week. I got a text yesterday saying she was at the bakery and had paid for the order. I got suspicious because I had never included her in those communications. I called the bakery today and was told by a very apologetic employee that my mom had added a multi-tiered groom's cake, with different fillings, flowers, the whole kit and caboodle. We still have the cheesecake, but I feel like it'll look silly next to what is essentially a wedding cake. My question now is, what do I do? She doesn't know that I know. I'm furious and hurt. Obviously, it's just a cake, but it's not really about that now. She went behind my back and crossed multiple boundaries after I told her no. Am I being a bridezilla for not letting her have her traditional wedding cake? Update 3 months later. Hello again. A big thank you to everyone who gave advice on my original post. I'm now married and had the best, most relaxing honeymoon with my now husband, without any pesky family bothering us. By the time I posted, it was too late to cancel the wedding due to deposits and contracts, so it continued as planned. To clarify, yes, my parents did pay for the wedding, although my husband and I made it clear several times that we did not expect or need them to pay for everything. No, I don't think their paying excuses my mom's actions. My parents reiterated that it was our wedding and that we should do what we wanted. Clearly, the cake was the exception to this, though she had previously said to get cheesecake if that's what we wanted. My husband and I got a laugh out of everyone's suggestions for how to handle the cake. Initially, I wanted to go the petty route and surprise my mom by calling the bakery to change the cake design to something she would find tacky, reflecting my husband's hobbies, like a groom's cake should do. After taking a few days to weigh my options, I knew my desire for petty satisfaction would nuke my relationship with my mom, which had truthfully never had this dynamic until wedding planning. I knew that she was absolutely in the wrong and acting like a child. And while I'm the actual child in the relationship, I wanted to be mature and handle this like an adult, if only for my own moral high ground. I communicated with my parents and listed all the reasons why this situation, and others throughout the wedding planning process, was hurtful and completely out of line. Shock of the century to everyone on Reddit, I'm sure, it didn't go well. There was a series of texts I received from my mom that demonstrated she couldn't take accountability or comprehend that I wasn't mad that she ruined my wedding by ordering a cake, but rather that she went behind my back knowing it would surprise and upset me on my wedding day. I attempted multiple times to redirect to the actual issue with little success. We ended the conversation with her apologizing for a cake making my husband and me so upset. This obviously wasn't a genuine apology or the main issue, even if she thought it was. She also agreed to move the groom's cake to a meal we had the day before the wedding, which I was fine with. At this point, we were a week out from the wedding, and the thought of continuing to press the issue was too much for me to handle with everything else on my plate. I dropped the rope leading up to the wedding so I could refocus on enjoying my wedding as best I could. I interacted with my mom as little as possible the day of, and our wedding party and coordinator did a fantastic job being a buffer. While I've had some contact with her since, it has dramatically declined so I can get some much-needed space. Obviously, we'll need to have some tough conversations, but I'm choosing to spend my time with my new husband, and getting back into therapy, first. Weddings, man, they really bring out the crazy in people. Oh, and the cheesecakes were a huge hit, by the way. Second update 1 year later. I'm back with a 1-year update on how my mom changed my wedding cake order without me knowing. People have reached out for an update, and coincidentally, I've had several friends get engaged who have similar family dynamics to mine. I've shared all of this with them, but I feel the need to blast this out online too. Now that I'm a year out, I can acknowledge that I love my husband and our life together, but having a traditional wedding was a big mistake. When I think back on our wedding day, I am devastated to admit that the few emotions I remember from that day were not about how much I love my now husband or the excitement over our future together, but anxiety over my mom and whether things were about to blow up. If you're recently engaged and have difficult family relationships or aren't completely sold on shelling out a ton of money for a wedding, please let this be yet another loud voice yelling at you, elope. Have a courthouse wedding. Don't invite problematic guests. Do whatever you want to do, but for the love of God, avoid that family drama at all costs. I wish I would have stuck to what I originally wanted, eloping somewhere abroad, but alas, I made my decision and have to accept it. What I didn't mention in my initial post was that my relationship with my mom immediately and irrevocably changed as soon as I became engaged. Even though I knew she could be a lot, I had no idea what I was in for. If I could do it all again, I would have stopped that wedding planning train in its tracks after the first few signs of craziness. The cake was, unsurprisingly, just the last straw in the craziness that happened. Greatest hits include 1. Telling literally, and I mean literally, everyone she knew that we were getting engaged less than 10 minutes after my husband told my parents he planned to propose. 2. Upon sharing the proposal photos with her, commenting on how big I looked in the photos, which are, to this day, ruined for me. 3. Telling a family member who commented on how beautiful I looked at a pre-wedding event, yeah, well, she's gained a lot of weight. 4. Trying to crash my first look on the day of my wedding and acting hurt that she wasn't invited. 5. Actually crashing my first look and throwing a fit when my wedding coordinator wouldn't let her in. And 6. Making the wedding all about how she never had a say in anything and that I was the controlling, immature one. Now, we do still have contact today, but it's limited, and I am very guarded with what I choose to share. She never genuinely apologized or acknowledged the stress and hurt she caused. Short of some major changes on her part, I don't see that happening. So yeah, the moral of the story is to absolutely soak up the fresh excitement of getting engaged. But seriously, ask yourself if there's anyone in your life who will make wedding planning hell on earth. If you're oh so fortunate to have a character like that, have a plan to handle it, and be prepared to enforce those boundaries. And for the extra crazy families out there, maybe just elope.